Hey everybody, how you doing today? Today we are going to do, I'm going to demonstrate for you, I do the technique videos and I like to do little parts of songs that I think are cool. And one of those little parts is the song Born to Run. And you might be thinking, well, there ain't nothing that hard in that song. The guy that I always go to is that, I don't know where I get that voice from. So, but in the recording of that song, the recording of it, not the live versions, the recording, there is a 2-bar break that the drummer plays on it that is just really cool, and you can listen to bands play that song, including Springsteen with Max, and you will not hear anybody play that song with that 2-bar break of that way, a drummer doing it, between New York and LA. You will not hear it, including Max.
They can really play jazz on top of it, I mean, if you listen, there's a funny moment in Born to Run. Da, 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 and you'll hear the drums going. I mean, something that no rock player would ever play.
Well, Glenn, I think you're mistaken because Max Weinberg played that song. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. So let's talk about the history. I like talking about the history of my heroes, my icons. I'm a fan of Springsteen. And I like finding out about the guys I like, whether it be drummers or bands or guitar players or whatever. I like to finding out about guys I like. So if we go back to the first 2 recordings from Springsteen, first 2 albums, we have Greetings from Asbury Park, and then we have The Wild, The Innocent, and The E Street Shuffle. Both those albums were not very successful. He didn't have a big following after those 2 albums came out. And he had a different rhythm section than he uses now, and then that he'd been using since I think 1978, 1979 or something. But so those first 2 albums had a slightly different rhythm section. 2 guys, one the drummer, and I'll get to him in a second, and the keyboard player. Let's talk about him first. I always like to do the nice stuff first. The the keyboard player on those first 2 albums is David Sanchez. A great jazz, New York jazz keyboard player. And I mean keyboards, organs, synth, piano. He's a keyboard player. And I got to see David Sanchez play with Oz Noy 2 years ago. Oz Noy is I hate these words, jazz fusion-ish guy from New York. Oz Noy is incredible. And I got to be honest with you. If you have not heard of Oz Noy, and I'm going to put a link to his site, I'm going to put a link to David Sanchez too in my descriptions. We always point down there, all the YouTube guys, because I guess it's below. Like, there's nothing below me. I don't know. I don't understand. Anyway, if you don't know Oz Noy, maybe you want to think about getting rid of the guitars and just put them. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Oz Noy is fantastic. He's not your typical jazz fusion playing everything as fast as he can. His arrangements and his melodic reharmonizations of tunes is, I think, ingenious, and not only does it fall in the category of fusion, but it's very, very, very listenable. Because I like fusion, and I can only take it for a period of time, and then I got to put it aside because it gets a little too, some of it gets too mathematical. I'm checking the camera, make sure I put it on because I'm old, I'm old. But Oz Noy, not so. Oz Noy, check him out. Anyway, David Sanchez was with him, with Jeff Berlin and Dennis Chambers. What a great band! It was a great show. David Sanchez is a jazz keyboard player. So let's talk about that. Now, the drummer that was on those 2 albums, I'm not going to mention his name. He's one of those few guys that I don't think he was very good. I just don't think he was very good. His time wasn't that good. He overplayed most of the tune. I don't think he kept a straight beat for more than 4 bars in any of that stuff. I don't think he was right for what Springsteen was trying to do at all. At all. I do think Max Weinberg is the right one for Bruce Springsteen. And let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the right one. We're going to talk a little bit before I demonstrate these. There's 2 bars in that Born to Run recorded song that was done by the drummer that recorded it, which is Ernest Boom Boom Carter, that are just incredible 2 bars that I'm not even sure if I'm going to do them exactly the right way, but I'm pretty darn close, okay? So let's talk about the right fit. The right fit. This is something we need to get used to as musicians, and this is where our ego can really be a problem. As great as you are, you may not be right for everybody. You may not be, that includes me. That includes me. I don't think I am an incredible bebop player. Can I get you through a gig? I don't come from that place. Let me just a little thing, and as musicians, we're so afraid of exposing vulnerabilities in our playing. The bulk of my work comes from R&B and blues and swing. I did several years of the Sinatra tribute show for Carnival Cruise Lines, and swing, man, I swing well, and I like to swing, and I love playing the music. I love the style. I love Sinatra stuff. But bebop is something that, for some reason, as coming up, I didn't connect with it as well. So, and the work I was getting did not force me to really work on it. Now, if you called me, can I get you through a bebop gig? Yeah, I would get you through, and I would do a good job, and I would work hard if I knew it was coming up in 2 weeks to make sure I had a handle. Just case in point, Carnival Cruise Lines, I was filling in. I used to fill in for a lot of people. And I filled in for a great jazz, R&B, great voice, guitar player, singer, Joseph Filippo, who's get a hold of him on my Facebook thing and hire him, whatever, a great player. He had a jazz trio. Now they were... He had a jazz trio. Now they were more on the swingy or the R&B. They did a lot of R&B and pop in their jazz trio show, but they also did some bebop. And so I don't think ever I would have been the perfect guy to be their regular player. And Joe himself, who's a great player, and I respect his opinion a lot, had 2 things that he said about me. One thing he didn't like was I tended to play in 8s. And that is a thing for pop and rock and R&B and swing drummers. We tend to play in phrases of 8. Even my solos tended to eke out the 8s. Where bebop players definitely go over the bar, over that not so much. I could go over the bar line, but I definitely stayed in my 4s and 8s. A bebop player probably would not do that. However, on the other side, Joe mentioned several times that one of the things he liked about me, and this is not that bebop players don't do this, but a lot of bebop players take more liberty with this. He had said to me, one thing he liked about me was whatever tempo he calls the song out at to start is generally the tempo we finished at. And that was something he wasn't used to at the time. So, and that wasn't to say his regular guy was bad, but jazz players tend to be a little more flexible with the time. Even Art Blakey had said, I think it was Art Blakey, he may not have said, if swing doesn't speed up a little bit, it's probably not swinging that good. And that was that old feeling that the time was a little more elastic. And, I mean, we can go back to Zeppelin, and Rick Beato, great YouTube guy, showed that when he quantized Led Zeppelin stuff, put it on the grid and made all those beats line up perfect, they just didn't sound as good. They move around a little bit in time, and they sound better when they're moving around a little bit, okay? That's just the reality of it. That's the reality of it. So there's the right fit. But, you call me for your rock or your R&B thing, or even your swing thing, or lots of shuffles, and I'm your guy, man, I'm going to kill on that. I'm going to kill on that, and I have. And I will. So the right fit. So back to David Sanchez. David Sanchez is a great keyboard player, whereas opposed to that drummer who I just think was not very good at all. David Sanchez is just probably not the right fit for Springsteen. So from what I heard through the grapevine, I don't know, it was a mutual agreement in that parting that Sanchez would leave. But however, when it was time to record the actual song Born to Run, Sanchez was still in the band, but they had not found a new drummer yet. And Max, I don't even know if Max had auditioned yet. All right? So a friend of David Sanchez's, is that right? Anybody know? Can we get a spell checker? Was a friend of David's was Ernest Boom Boom Carter. It might even be Ernest Boom Carter. I don't know. And he was a New York jazz session guy. And you can hear on Born to Run that this guy is playing a sort of jazz idiom underneath that. He's popping it up, man. I mean, he's staying within he's coloring within the lines, but within those lines, he's being pretty bold with his colors. Much more using a much bigger palette of color during that than Max might do. However, like I said, I think Max is a really good player, and I think that he is the better fit. Max Weinberg is the better fit for Springsteen. So, but I want to talk about the two bars that are at the time count on the song, 2 minutes and 38 seconds. It's a 4-bar break. It's a second break. It's a 4-bar little instrumental break, and the last 2 bars is a very, very cool little paradiddly lick, and I want to demonstrate that for you. And this is what Ernest did. Again, Ernest, I don't even really know when I should check it. I'll write something about this next to me up here or something. I'll find out if Ernest is still with us. I'm not sure, because he was probably in his 30s when he recorded this. Maybe he might have been in his 20s. I don't know. So, but I'll check, make sure he's still with us. And you should look him up and listen to everything he's been on, because he was an incredible drummer. And it is the only song he played on that album. They did audition, and they got Max Weinberg, and Max plays on the rest of that album, Jungle Land, Thunder Road, all those songs. But on the Born to Run song is Ernest Carter, and this is what he did in that 2-bar break. Okay, before I do the 2-bar break, let's just show you the beats that are used, that Ernest uses in that song. They're pretty simple. Let's just go about them slow. Again, the song is at about 142, which is moving along for a rock tune. But there's 2 basic beats he uses, and one of them is this, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You know, quicker though. But he's opening the hi-hat on either the end of 2 or the end of 4. And again, Ernest was a jazz player, so I think if they did 4 takes on this tune, he probably would have played these things a little different. So it would be this. It's along those lines, and I don't know if that was 142, it might have been on the quick side. So, along those lines, the second pattern he does, right, which is the one that happens most often, and it is the pattern that Max really stays with in his version of the tune. They do it a little bit slower than they recorded it. I'm not sure where, but definitely it's slower than the recorded version. And it is this. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2. So when it's quicker. So there's those 2 beats that Ernest goes back and forth with, okay? And that was kind of unique too, because especially when this song came out in the 70s, you didn't hear too much of, except for maybe James Brown, Tower of Power, people taking the snare off of 2 and 4. But, you know, jazz dudes aren't so religiously bound to 2 and 4 like rock and R&B guys are. So this is why you hear that. Again, that's the jazz sneaking through. That's the jazz coming through. So we get to the 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and there's, so here's the pattern. We start out with, and you know, come to think of it, I think it might be 5 bars. We start out with, at 2 minutes and 38 seconds, they do these hits, you know, da, da, and then there's this fill, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate right now, nice and slow. So my snare hand, and I'm playing with my right because I'm left-handed, you're going to play with your left, is going to be ghosting all the way through. So here's just the hands part, right? It is 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. Are you seeing that? 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So he doesn't really come up and play an accent till beat 4. Now what's the bass drum doing, you're going to ask, right? So the hi-hat's going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. Now, sometimes to me it sounds like he's doing this, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. And he might be. He might be. But when I play that, it sounds too clumsy to me. It sounds better doing this. And remember, the big guy back then, and he's the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Steve Gadd. He did a lot of this kind of snare hi-hat stuff. So, you know, chances are he would do it on the snare, because if he was like everybody else in New York at the time, they had heard Gadd and they thought, okay, that's a guy I gotta sound like. That's a guy. And so he probably did it that way. So what's the bass drum doing? Near as I can tell, he's doing 1, the duh of 1, and I think it's the E of 2, and then 3, the duh of 3, and the E of 4. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what he's doing. So he's doing this, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a... Right? Are you hearing it now? So this is quick, guys. This is quick. So let's set the old metronome. Let's set the metronome. And I've already got it set for 142. How did he know? Okay. So here we go. Again. I love that lick. I love that lick. One more time. Nice and slow again. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a... So in that very last 3 to 4, that is a very classic funk thing to do. Right? And that's why I think for sure Ernest was doing that. Because you got that 3 E, and then by the bass drum hit on duh, you got a second to pick your hands up and... Right, you got that 1 second. And then they go back into that that big thing, that very famous little part, that ba 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 da 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 da. Right, and I don't want to demonstrate that. That's stuff you can figure out, and you're all big boys and girls, you figure it out. But that's the lick in Born to Run, and if you did that, to be honest with you, I think if they were playing in Born to Run and they were used to listening to the live way that Max does it, I think they'd probably fire you. They'd probably fire you. But if they were hip, they'd go, oh, you're doing the recorded version, that's cool, but don't ever do it again. All right, anyway, I hope that helps you out, just for fun. This was just a fun one today. Anyway, Born to Run, they might, if they copyright get me, put a little clip of it. Anyway, I hope this helps you out, and I will see you on the next one. I got a pretty good interview coming up soon on musicians on couches. All right, see you soon.